Hey folks, this is Brian. It is Sunday morning. We're getting ready to check out and go to breakfast and run one more game for Working Fears. So, yesterday I had two Pendragon games, not campaigns, games. The first one was the King's Gambit, and the other one was my own new scenario to test out using the aliens stress mechanic in Pendragon, see how that worked out. But anyway, first game, the Fainting Spirit, went really fast. I'm not sure what I may be doing wrong, but we end up spending nearly half an hour on the very last scene where the Duke is charging the King's army, and instead of just doing a pass and say you get this 12 Lubrum, we actually ran a number of passes, a number of fights that got knocked down, went to sword, that kind of stuff, to play some more mechanics. But anyway, um, initial scenes, they go well. The arrows from the forest. Well, the first one's when they're one of the players one player interceded against their hospitality. It was a hospitality honor conflict. That was actually kind of fun to play with. A couple of those did lose 1 point of honor because they didn't intervene. But one player did intervene. Oh, after the intervention, the count comes up, and so there's who's going to be the champion for Lady Gale, and one of the players volunteers, or they were talking about glory and traits and stats and that kind of stuff, and it came down to this one player, and so he's out there fighting, and I asked him if he wants to develop a more passion for Lady Gale. He said, sure, yeah. So he rolled a 19 and used that to impassion himself for his fight, but he fumbled. No, he didn't fumble the first round. The first round, he got crit on, knocked him down, gave him a major wound. Oh, it was nasty. But he got up to keep fighting. And then they both fumbled, dropping their swords. They pick up their swords. And then he got hit one more time. And at that, he yielded. It was better to yield conscious rather than yield unconscious, is what his thinking was. So he gets, the whole healing, all that stuff happening, and Lady Gale tries to take care of him, though she's disappointed. And so the forest scene, the ambush, the arrows come out. Most of them hit horses. But they made all the riding rolls, the horsemanship rolls, so it was all under control. And then they race back. They have a little conference with Robert, and so the next morning, boom, they race out, and I'm not sure if I may be doing the Saxon turn wrong, because the Saxons were just like moving one stage per turn, whereas the players were making their hunting roll and making their riding rolls. So they're moving two. In fact, two of the players crit their horsemanship roll, which gave them two spaces to go forward. The first time they decided, no, I'm going to stay back with the party. But the second time was the other guy who had decent hunting. He said, no, yeah, I'll go ahead. So he went ahead, and then he made his hunting roll. So he got to, not Silchester. I mean, it was Silchester. No, it was Lavicalmas first. Sorry. That really made a difference. But they get there. We do the whole suspicious thing, and one of the guys fumbled his suspicious roll. So he just tells the truth. This is what we're doing. So they take him to the seneschal, and the write-up is kind of confusing through there because you're dealing directly with the seneschal who's acting on the behalf of Duke Ulfus right there, instead of sending them forward to Duke Ulfus. So it got a little confusing in the gameplay. But they do the orate, do well there. Okay, good to go. And then we have Duke Ulfus' army marching south, and we were like 2 hours. We were done in just over 2 hours. We do well. Hey, we're going to do some, running down Saxon dogs. So we spent a whole bunch of time doing combat rolls. It was a lot of fun. But I need to go through that one again and see where I may be doing something wrong. Okay, my last game was my own scenario, because it's a grim dark kind of thing, right? To bring in that stress mechanic from aliens. And I looked at a handful of different stress horror type mechanics, and this one seemed to fit the best from what I could get. The way I adjusted it is, um, as your stress level goes up, if you roll on your skill at or below your stress level, panic occurs. And so while you still want to roll low to get below your skill level, you don't want to roll so low that you get into your stress. So it was kind of fun. It seemed to work a little bit at first, but once people started panicking, and if you see somebody panic, you panic. Yeah, it just kind of cascaded at the last fight. The first fight was some chaos tainted dire wolves. I gotta find ways for these critters to be tougher because they just mowed right through these guys. And their chaotic feature was their chaotic feature was that they regenerated every round. But if they're dead in 2 rounds, regeneration is not going to help anything at all. They went inside. I have probably too much descriptive narrative about to notice at the scene about how dark and scary and everything is. But they go into the tower. And they decide to go. There's stairs going up and down. So they decide to go down. They go down the first areas, which is the actual ground floor because the entrances level up. And I borrowed all this stuff from a D&D module that I play with all the time. And so there's like these kitchens down here on the ground floor, and some storage pantry stuff. And it turns out that I did not finalize all of my creature stat blocks. So there's this chaos tainted snake, and it can breathe fire, but it just had, the damage it does and the range. It was way too much damage. 10d6. That's not right. We gotta change that. Yeah, I got it. And I didn't have, the glory for that kind of stuff. Plus, then they went down further, and there's these witches, doing their spell stuff. And so they attack the witches, and the witches have spells, but I forgot to actually elaborate in my notes how the spells affect. I've got the severity of the spell written down, but not like a skill level to cast kind of thing. So it got kind of funky, but they did some of the fighting. I also had some green slime that fell down on one of the players, and so that player's getting burned, trying to get themselves cleaned off. We were using the first aid skill to simulate that kind of stuff. She's pouring water on it and that kind of thing, and the 2 other players are like taking bandages, and trying to wipe them down. At first they didn't. They tried to wipe it off, and of course they burned their hands. So and after that they start using stuff to help wipe it down. We're using the first aid skill to simulate getting stuff off her. So she's taking this one burn wound, and it's increasing in severity as time goes by. But they managed to get her all cleaned off. And the other fighters were fighting the witches. One witch has a familiar, which is this violent bunny that's attacking and doing all kinds of damage. But when I say all kinds of damage, I guess wearing chains, so he's getting 1 or 2 points of damage every round, kind of thing, when it wins. But they kill one of the witches fairly quickly. Then the third witch has the special ability with backstabbing, so she does a whole lot of damage if she surprises somebody. So she surprised one of the knights and did all kinds of massive damage. And he ended up falling down, and something else happened to him, but he ended up getting hit again by her, which killed him. That time, stress stuff is going on, right? Where people are starting to panic. They've got a couple guys freezing, got somebody trembling, got somebody who takes a round to go and find cover and hide, that kind of thing. But he recovers, and then the 2 that were cleaning up the one player with the goo, then turn on the other witches, and so one of the players actually ended up killing both of the last 2 witches. And at that point, we've got a player who's down, everybody who's hurt, and everybody's got their stress in the 6, 7 higher level kind of thing. So they said, okay, let's kind of go back. So we go back to the manor. and do chirurgery, and it's going to take 8 weeks of healing for the one guy to get back up. And then we do winter phase, so I got to walk through all of that with everybody. I also started the game with games before the game, right? These are the kind of things that can happen during winter phase. There are things you can do. There's horse races, there's hunting, there's something else, and then there's the romance piece and that kind of thing. So if you want, I offer to the players if they want to do any of these things, we can do that to see what the mechanics like and get a chance to play around with it. Duel was another one, and Joust was one. So we did a joust to show some of the combat, and then we did the hunting thing, which ended up hunting a wolf, and the wolf ended up fumbling its avoidance roll, so found it, killed it quick. Holy cow, these animals. And then one of the players wanted to do the romance, and this guy wasn't really all there. He didn't have any dice, but one of the players loaned him dice, plus I had some just in case. But when I talked about this romance, that we're going to do this, he just went off on his own. Talking about what he's doing, and who she is, and where she is, and what she's seeing, and it's a little risque there, and I'm going, okay, just let him run with it. And I have him roll his dice. Okay, you reduce her resistance factor, and then we get back to the game. Yeah, poor guy. But he seemed to have fun at times. When the attention was focused on him, he was a little bored. But c'est la vie. Anyway, last day. Not sure I'll be able to do a recording today or not because it's a 9-hour drive back and got some stuff to do. Happy gaming.